There you are. Well, the events continue for the Tennessee Volunteers, as officially it'll be Kelly Harper extending the legacy of Pat Summitt to a certain extent, and in my opinion, totally destroying it in another, because I've talked about the contracts that Tennessee is now paying its women's basketball coaches. And frankly, they are not on a level of their peers, assuming that you consider the peers of the University of Tennessee Lady Vols to be Connecticut, South Carolina, Mississippi State, Louisville, Baylor, and not Notre Dame. I got to conclude those guys. And not necessarily other D1s that may try to save some bucks with their women's basketball program. Hello, everybody. I'm Marky Billson, your voice of choice for a new generation of Tri-City sports fans. Name of the program is Tri-City Sports Now. You should have picked up on that by this time. And it's on 1420 WEMB Sports Radio. We own the Tri-Cities with the best guests, the hardest hitting opinions, the new ideas. And that sometimes is tough for me because I got to admit, I don't like hip-hop. I love sports history. Nothing would make me happier if we could do 15 minutes a day on the life of Tilly Walker. I mean, just stuff that I like, and all that. Could Fireball Roberts, race in today's NASCAR? We're going to ask Jerry Bonkowski that. I love the historical stuff. I do. It's unlocking a mystery to me. I know I'll be around in the future. I know that's going to be exciting. But more stories, and getting an appreciation of the past. That's always something that I enjoy doing as well. Hey, I'm Dr. Vita Joyce Hull's baby boy, right? And she's one of the great art historians of the country, at least retired at this point. All that. But in keeping with that theme, Alex Doherty of A to Z Sports Nashville will join me. That'll be at 1:15. Stanley Cup playoffs begin today. Predators playing the Stars, 9:30 Eastern Time, Central over in Nashville at 8:30. That game will be on USA Today. A lot of other intriguing matchups that we'll get to over the course of the program, or we'll run by with Alex Doherty. One writer I see has picked the Predators to win the Stanley Cup. One Sports Illustrated writer has done that. Try to get to that. And that's our guest for the day. Of course, I'm going to have all the latest out of spring practice for the Tennessee Volunteers. Kelly Harper will be announced at 4 p.m. as the new women's basketball coach. And I think, though, that is not necessarily a hire that, puts the pressure on Harper so much as I think it actually puts the pressure on Phil Fulmer. Because the way that Harper was hired, still, like I said, not $1 million a year coach for the Lady Vols. And I'll be honest, I think Pat Summitt's rolling over in her grave. Not that Harper, the former Kelly Jolly, has been hired, but that she isn't paid along a level of her peers. Now you can say, has she earned it? Hey, all she's done is take Missouri State to the Sweet 16. What's that? Okay, fine. Does Jeremy Pruitt then deserve his $4 million a year contract? It's give or take. It was a little bit less than that last year, but I know they were in raises. What's he done to deserve that? Really? At Tennessee, if you're going to do that, you're going to pay for what you did as an assistant coach, then shouldn't Holly Warlick have been paid Jeff Waltz was, what Gino Ariema was? Shouldn't she have? Well, that doesn't seem to be the Tennessee mantra now. And as a result, I think you can see that the Lady Vols program is struggling, and I think it will continue to struggle as long as it has that mindset. when you are underpaying your coach. It's just like a small market baseball team. You know, they're going to have a third baseman that makes $2 million a year. It's nice work if you can get it. But the big market team will have one that makes 10. Who do you think they'll attract that's better? What organization do you want to be a part of? You know, it's that sort of thing. But this is the way Phil Fulmer, and, you know, Caleb Calhoun yesterday mentioned, hey, you know, maybe that's Dave Hart, because when he came in as the athletic director at Tennessee, he had, you know, look at budgets then. And Tennessee still, they're taking in money's hand over fist to this day. I mean, even as bad as the football program has been the last 2 years, you know, you can pretty much count on 90,000 people showing up. So they're selling the tickets, maybe a little bit less than the glory days, but, you know, what, 85,000 when school was out for a Vanderbilt game? That's still not bad. I mean, only in Tennessee would that be considered bad. BMS would have loved to have had 85,000 people at their race on Sunday. Now, wouldn't they have? Think about that. But it goes to me that there are certain figures the media rules untouchable, or that they latch themselves onto. And, you know, contemporarily, one guy, this is me being from Pittsburgh, I know, but Ben Roethlisberger. Ben Roethlisberger at one time epitomized the persona of an arrogant athlete. Ben Roethlisberger at one time refused to pay cover charges at Pittsburgh nightclubs because he was Ben Roethlisberger. Ben Roethlisberger, I don't know if he still does, but he used to have a bodyguard follow him around. All right, I mean, that was Ben Roethlisberger. And the idea of a divided locker room, that started the moment Roethlisberger arrived in 2004. Oh, yeah, believe me. But the perception right now is Roethlisberger good, Antonio Brown bad. Now, it's one thing to have a star quarterback's transgressions forgotten by hometown media. They still got to deal with the guy. And I think this is sort of what's going on with Phil Fulmer, especially now when the diva wide receiver is traded away. And this also was similar, let's go back 27 years to the great Fulmer-Majors feud. Okay, Fulmer was the one that stuck around. Yeah, they were going to latch their wagon, was the media around here. What was the deal to stay with Johnny Majors? He wasn't even in Knoxville anymore. He was coaching the Pitt Panthers. But when the national media gives their seal of approval to you, that's another thing, which is the case of what has happened with Ben Roethlisberger, because I want you to consider this. You know, Packers and Steelers met in the Super Bowl about 10 years ago. Who won? Yeah, it was the Packers, Aaron Rodgers. He's now perceived as more of a clubhouse cancer than Roethlisberger in the national media's eye. Listen to Colin Cowherd, who comes on after my show. That's amazing. I mean, think about that. Especially with all the... Ben Roethlisberger nearly, and if to be brutally honest with you, he's most fortunate that there was a custodian in Georgia who cleaned a restroom before the police could do their rape investigation on it. He's tremendously fortunate that that happened. Otherwise, I might be talking about Ben Roethlisberger being in jail instead of making millions of dollars and quarterbacking the Pittsburgh Steelers. Think about that. Now, around here, thankfully, Phil Fulmer would never do anything like that. No, I don't think that he would, of course. But the local media has attached themselves to the Tennessee AD. And it's understandable. You know, like I said, you latch yourself on to the franchise quarterback. You latch yourself on to the coach who brought a national championship to Tennessee 20 years ago. He's an icon in Knoxville. I get it. And I also think that here's something else about Phil Fulmer that we all know, but generally we don't talk about. His appearance is Bubba. Come on. Yeah, you look at Fulmer, you think Bubba. But he's got a lot of gangsta in him. You never thought that the Winchester, Tennessee would be the hood, huh? He became the head football coach and the AD at Tennessee through manipulation. There's no doubt about that. And there is, therefore, a strong sense of don't mess with me in Fulmer. And I think that carries over to the media. But the direction of the Volunteers is firmly in his hands. And unlike his predecessors, be they Hart, be they John Curry, be they whoever, his moves are unquestioned. So Kelly Harper is the third head coach Fulmer has hired at Tennessee, fourth overall, because basically he's the guy that brought Carl Torbush to ETSU. Of those hires, none of his football coaches have ever posted a winning record. Now think about that. Harper's hire speaks of Tennessee trying to win on memories, which is likely what doomed Holly Warlock, who I spent the better part of this segment telling you wasn't paid in conjunction, wasn't paid like her peers were. Neither is Warlock. $750,000 a year, more than, neither is Harper. More than what Warlock was making, which is stunning to me, but still. It's half of what Jeff Waltz makes at Louisville. It's less than half what Jim Chaney, the Vols' new offensive coordinator, makes. And as Fulmer said last year, obviously the reason I'm here is to help fix football. Now we can discuss what that means at a university, if that should be the proper athletic mission for the Vols, since they paved the way for women's athletics to rise from an afterthought to mainstream. But the fact of the matter is that I really think that, I think that if somebody came to most Tennessee fans, almost all of them, and said, you know what? I can get the Vols in the football national championship game, but the Lady Vols would have to endure 10 straight losing seasons. Sign them up. I think that most fans would say that. Popularity of football against the popularity of women's basketball. So, here's the deal. Next season in football, the Vols' schedule isn't all that tough. We did a best case scenario, worst case scenario. Writer had said that. Best case scenario said was 8-4, and I'm kind of believing that. I think that the losses on the schedule that are pretty much guaranteed to happen, the same old with Florida and Alabama, obviously. And then, look, Georgia has surpassed Tennessee as a football program, and then Missouri is going to have a real good team. You know, with Keller Bryant coming into play quarterback for them, they've got a great offensive line. Missouri could win the SEC East. I didn't say they would. I said they will be one of three candidates to do so. The others being obviously Florida and Georgia. But if you're looking for a dark horse, okay, Missouri, look for them. Game's going to be in Columbia next year. Missouri's beaten Tennessee 5 of 7 years. It's gonna be 6 of 8. Okay, so those are 4 losses. But then again, you've got the Chattanooga, Georgia State, UAB. Those are victories. Vandy comes into Knoxville. I know Vandy's had the Vols in a number of the last few years, but honestly, excuse me. Honestly, games in Knoxville, they don't have Kyle Shermer anymore. You'd be surprised. It really is. Tennessee always beats Kentucky. I mean, there are certain things like that you just cannot overlook. South Carolina comes into Knoxville, things like that, and you start saying, that should be a victory, sort of thing. Okay. BYU doesn't, how daunting are they, So really next year the Vols should have a winning record. They should be 7-5. But as it stands right now, the coaches that Phil Fulmer has hired, Carl Torbush and Jeremy Pruitt, have a record of 16-29 combined. Now, people will point to Torbush's 11-22 record and make excuses as they do around here. He was starting up a football program. Didn't seem to hurt Kennesaw State that much. The reason why ETSU lost under Torbush was not because they were a startup program. Oh, nobody expects them to win the FCS title their first year, but, Kennesaw State went 6-5 and defeated ETSU 56-16 their first year. The reason why the Bucks were 11-22 under Carl Torbush is he was painfully old school. Painfully. What also didn't make any sense is here he was talking about, I won't bring in JUCO transfers, but he bring in other kinds of transfers. And then Steve Forbes was revitalizing ETSU basketball with a plethora of JUCO transfers, and nobody saw that, well, this guy is losing by not doing it, and this guy is winning by doing it. Maybe we should criticize Torbush for his old-fashioned thinking. Torbush was painfully old school. Is Pruitt? Younger man, certainly, but he's got some less than modern qualities as well, from the way he handles the media to overseeing an offense last year. And I know he's a defensive guy, but still, that was one conservative offense at the end of the 2018 season. Now, does that mean that Tennessee, going forward, is going to be fundamentally sound? Or does it mean that the Vols on the gridiron will be outdated? We'll have a better insight after next football season. And you know what else we'll have? We'll know a bit more about whether Tennessee made the right move by hiring a former football coach to be their athletic director, something rarely done in modern times. And really, Phil Fulmer's untouchable status as an athletic director depends on the success of the Tennessee football team next year. Here it is. They got the orange and white game this Saturday. And, yeah, we're boosting that up now. Well, you bring in the new coach. Rick Barnes stays. You tell me. It's time to now evaluate the athletic director. That's his record. Right now, it's still, okay, jury's still out, but jury's got to be making a decision here pretty soon. Tri-City Sports Now.
The 24th annual